All right, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going deep on this whole .NET and cloud thing that everyone's talking about.
Yeah, it's a pretty hot topic.
It is. And we're going to zero in especially on how .NET and Azure work together because there's some serious synergy there.
For sure.
We've been digging through a ton of research on this.
Lots to cover.
Lots to cover. But we're going to break it all down, try to make it super clear, and by the end of this deep dive, well, you'll know if .NET and the cloud is the right path for you.
That's the goal.
It is. So to start, how about we just acknowledge the elephant in the room? Azure is Microsoft, .NET is Microsoft. Kind of feels like they're meant to be, right?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense they'd play well together, but it goes way beyond just basic compatibility, right?
Yeah.
Azure offers some really powerful tools that are specifically designed with .NET developers in mind.
Okay, so let's get specific. What are some of those tools? What's Azure bringing to the table that makes .NET developers' lives easier?
Well, for starters, there's Azure App Service. This is like a dream come true for hosting .NET web apps.
I've heard that name thrown around a lot.
Yeah, it's super popular because it just handles so much for you. Deployment, scaling, security, it's all pretty much baked in.
So less time messing with servers, more time actually building stuff.
Exactly. And then you've got Azure Functions, which is all about serverless computing. This lets you run .NET code without having to manage any infrastructure at all.
I gotta admit, the whole serverless thing kind of blew my mind when I first heard about it. Like, where's my code even running?
Right. It seems kind of magical. But Azure handles all the behind-the-scenes stuff, so you can just focus on writing your .NET code.
And for bigger, more complex .NET applications,
Yeah.
there's Azure Kubernetes Service, right?
Yep. Kubernetes can seem a bit intimidating at first, but Azure makes it way more approachable, especially for .NET devs. It's a powerful way to manage and scale even the most demanding apps.
So we've got these purpose-built environments for .NET on Azure, which is awesome. But one of the things that really struck me in our research was how streamlined the whole deployment process is. Like, how much easier does Azure actually make it?
Well, think about it this way. You can go from writing code to having your .NET application live in the cloud in a matter of minutes.
Seriously, that fast?
Yep. Especially with Visual Studio, which most .NET developers use anyway. Azure has this tight integration with Visual Studio, so you can deploy directly from your development environment. No need to jump through a bunch of hoops.
That's got to be a huge time saver.
Absolutely. And it's not just about speed. Azure also takes care of a lot of the security stuff for you and scaling your application as it grows. Way easier with Azure handling the infrastructure.
So less stress, less overhead, more focus on the actual code. Sounds like a win-win.
Yeah.
But let's shift gears a bit. .NET itself has gone through some pretty major changes in recent years.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like .NET Core was a big deal, right? It wasn't just a new version. It felt like a whole new way of thinking about .NET.
Absolutely. .NET Core was a game changer. Before that, .NET was pretty much tied to Windows. But with .NET Core, you can run your applications on Linux, Mac OS, you name it.
So it became platform agnostic.
Exactly. And that's huge for cloud development because it gives you so much more flexibility when choosing your infrastructure. You're not locked into any one platform.
And flexibility is key in the cloud, right? Like, things change so fast.
All the time. And with .NET Core, you're able to adapt and evolve your applications much more easily as the cloud landscape shifts.
So .NET's cross-platform now, which is awesome. But it's not just about infrastructure, right? Our research kept highlighting AI and machine learning as key strengths of .NET in the cloud, especially with Azure. How does that actually play out for developers? Like, what can you do with that?
Well, the cool thing is that Azure makes AI and machine learning incredibly accessible to .NET developers. For example, there's Azure Cognitive Services.
I've heard whispers about that.
Yeah, it's super powerful. It lets you add things like image recognition, natural language processing, even sentiment analysis to your .NET applications with just a few lines of code.
So you could build some pretty smart apps without having to be a machine learning expert.
Exactly. And then there's Azure Machine Learning, which is a more full-fledged platform for building and deploying your own custom machine learning models. Again, it's all integrated with .NET, so you can work within your familiar tools and workflows.
So we're talking about adding some serious intelligence to our .NET applications. That's exciting. And speaking of exciting, let's circle back to this whole serverless thing with Azure Functions. What's the big draw there? Why are so many .NET developers going serverless?
Honestly, it's the freedom. With Azure Functions, you write your .NET code, deploy it, and Azure takes care of absolutely everything else. Scaling, infrastructure, security. You don't have to worry about any of it.
So you can just focus on building the coolest, most innovative features you can dream up.
Exactly. You're not bogged down by server management or infrastructure headaches. It's all about the code.
That's a pretty compelling argument.
Yeah.
Now, I've talked a lot about Azure, and it seems like a perfect match for .NET. But our research also mentioned that .NET can be used with other cloud platforms too, right? It's not a one-cloud pony.
Yeah. Definitely not. And that's one of the best things about .NET Core. Because it's cross-platform, your .NET skills and code aren't limited to just Azure. You can deploy .NET applications on Amazon Web Services, AWS, Google Cloud Platform, GCP, pretty much anywhere you want.
So freedom of choice. That's always a good thing.
Absolutely. And it helps avoid vendor lock-in, which is something a lot of companies are concerned about these days.
For sure. So wrapping this all up, it seems clear that the relationship between .NET and cloud platforms like Azure is only getting stronger. It's like they're feeding off each other's strengths, making it easier and more efficient to build some truly amazing applications.
Absolutely. And the future looks even brighter. As .NET continues to evolve and the cloud keeps expanding, the possibilities for .NET developers are pretty much limitless.
And that's what's so exciting about all this. So for everyone listening, here's something to ponder. How could this cross-platform flexibility of .NET open up new doors for your future projects? Maybe you've got an idea that would be a perfect fit for a specific cloud environment. Or maybe you want to explore a new platform altogether. Whatever it is, .NET gives you the power to make it happen.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And that's the deep dive for today.
See you next time.
Catch you later.